Hello and welcome to Crime Beat Most Wanted. I'm Tracy Tong. Tonight, police are on the hunt for an escaped criminal convicted of 2 cold-blooded killings. After an execution-style shooting in an upscale Vancouver restaurant, customers flee for their lives. Then, a brazen killing on a busy cafe patio in the middle of a Euro Cup soccer match in Toronto's Little Italy. Rabih Alkhalil is one of Canada's most wanted. He masterminded his escape from a prison in British Columbia as his trial was underway. The fugitive is now at large, and tonight, police are asking for your help in tracking him down. Here's Jules Knox now with the hunt for Rabih Alkhalil.
On the evening of January 17, 2012, the temperature in Vancouver dipped below freezing. But deep in the heart of downtown, the Sheraton Wall Centre was buzzing with energy. Vancouver was hosting a qualifying tournament for the Summer Olympics. And some of the women's soccer teams were staying at the Posh hotel.
So you had the Cuban national soccer team staying at the hotel. You had the American soccer team staying at the hotel, including Hope Solo. The Cuban women were in the lobby, as were many other patrons of the hotel. Dip Dury had gone in with a friend, sat at this table by the window. His friend, he went out for a smoke.
The shooter arrives nearby, comes in disguise through the revolving glass doors into the lobby. In the lobby, there's a number of people milling about.
And the shooter literally walked up to the table when Dury was there by himself after ordering food and shot him point blank range.
People are running for cover, ducking, so there's chaos. And then there's sort of an eerie quiet.
You know, I think all of us were a bit scared. I think that's the reality of the situation. We all travel all around the world, big cities, small cities, and, you know, I think it's a normal thing that crime happens.
The one individual that I was speaking to said that he was in the lobby area. He had heard the shots and saw the man escape.
He just leaves out of a side door of the hotel and he's gone.
There was numerous police officers all over the place, and doors were being locked, and the guests were had to identify themselves going in and out.
The restaurant wasn't full, but you know, there were dozens of people in the area at the time, if you include patrons and staff. Again, this is an unacceptable, brazen shooting that puts innocent people at risk.
Police swarmed the hotel after the 8:45 p.m. shooting. Ironically, 36-year-old Sandeep Dip Dury was sitting in public at a window seat in the Top Flight Hotel restaurant, out on bail for fleeing from police. But apparently he couldn't flee from a rival gang.
Sandeep, he was an intelligent and a smart person. He wasn't like dumb whatsoever. And that's the sad thing now that, you know, he's gone. It's just like you can't outsmart a bullet kind of thing, right?
The whole Dury family was very high profile here. You know, we not only knew that it was gang related, we had a good sense of who would have been behind it.
He has a lot of friends, he knows a lot of people. You know, everybody in that world, they do get enemies, but somebody that's been around that long, they have a lot of respect in that world, and nobody's gonna let this just slide.
Across the country, in Toronto, College Street West is the cornerstone of Little Italy. The neighborhood is home to the city's oldest gelateria, the Sicilian Sidewalk Cafe. On June 18, 2012, 5 months after the Vancouver shooting, Euro Cup fans packed onto its patio for the game between Italy and Ireland. At halftime, Italy was leading 1-0.
An unknown person enters the patio by himself and seats at a table by himself. He's dressed in a construction-style outfit, orders a beverage from the staff. And while the staff are in the process of getting that order for him, he then gets up and engages our victim and shoots him point blank multiple times before fleeing the area on foot.
I heard, 4 loud pops, but I thought it was somebody letting off firecrackers or something because of the Italian game.
Just heard some gunshots, about 4 or 5 gunshots, and just saw everybody running. And that was about it. It's pretty freaky.
What I can confirm is 2 victims right now. Our homicide squad is on scene, however, they've just arrived as well, so I don't have anything further on the victims.
Johnny Raposo was enjoying a drink in the cafe when a trigger man came up and assassinated him, essentially.
The victim had frequented that location many times. He was from the neighborhood. As a matter of fact, he was known by almost everyone that attends that location. He was a family man. He had a child and had another one on the way.
No! No! Police say Raposo, also known as Little Johnny and Johnny Maserati, was targeted. The gunman, who was dressed as a construction worker wearing a white dust mask, fired shots point blank at Raposo's head. Another man who was also injured in the shooting is expected to survive.
There were numerous witnesses, and of course, no 2 people see things exactly the same way, but each of them collectively described this unknown person seated, looking out of place. Many made reference to a wig that he was wearing, and he appeared to be very clean, which is not something that one would expect for a construction worker mid-afternoon.
45 minutes after the murder, the gunman sent a message. Owner of units is dead, meaning the owner of the cocaine is dead. The shooter also texted that he had dressed in a construction uniform, mullet, and helmet, and that he sat down and ordered a Corona. His associate texted back, quote, "Time we put you in sniper school, I think. This seems too easy for you."
No arrest has been made. As far as the public safety issue, we've got a crime scene set up here. We're going to continue to ask people to stay away from that.
The casket of 35-year-old John Raposo was carried into church, flanked by family, including the mother of his unborn child and his 17-month-old toddler.
A steady stream of mourners visited the Cardinal Funeral Home here on Bathurst Street. Many decided not to speak on camera, and those who did had harsh words for John Raposo's alleged killer.
I hope he gets good justice, because our system sucks.
This woman tells me he was a good man.
We always hear about the rap sheet, but see, we don't know about that. A lot of people don't know about that, because obviously that was his life, that was his private life. But what we know of him is he was a good guy.
This is a very extensive investigation that we're conducting. This is the very beginning of that investigation. There is a lot of legwork still to do.
During the investigation, police intercepted hundreds of messages that wove a web of betrayal. And they started taking a closer look at some of the victims' business associates.
Rabih Alkhalil, his name came up as someone who was of interest.
And there was evidence that Johnny Raposo had been part of this criminal organization that Alkhalil was also a part of that was importing, exporting cocaine. And that for some reason they had a falling out with him and they decided to take him out.
Well, the Alkhalil family had been on our radar, not just our radar, but all law enforcement's radar for quite some time. What really brought the Alkhalil family to prominence was propensity for violence. So we were aware that the family was here and had embedded themselves in the criminal world, predominantly in the drug trafficking world. Rabih was already subject to other investigations, predominantly in Quebec.
Police believed he was a key player in an extensive drug smuggling operation.
As Projet Locasse was about to make the arrest, Rabih was able to flee.
After the murder, Rabih Alkhalil fled the country when a number of search warrants were executed by the Vancouver Police Homicide Unit in Quebec. We believe he was working in concert with other suspects who were present and actively involved in the murder at that time. This investigation is not over. We are pursuing charges against all of the parties involved.
Coming up, the search for Rabih Alkhalil heats up and hits the international stage. That's after the break. Welcome back. As the dragnet circled around Rabih Alkhalil, he was nowhere to be found. An Interpol notice was sent out for the alleged murderer. He's described as 5 feet 10 inches tall, or 178 centimeters. He has black hair, dark brown eyes, and weighs about 165 pounds, or 75 kilograms. He is convicted of 2 murders and is wanted for murder and conspiracy to commit murder. We now return to Jules Knox with the latest developments on the search for Rabih Alkhalil.
Before Canadian officers were able to catch Rabih Alkhalil, the suspected killer left the country.
It was quite some time later he turned up in Greece, was found to have a false passport, and was taken into custody by Greek authorities.
Based on our own intelligence gathering, there was a decision that the best way to return him would be by a chartered plane. Because it's an international arrest, there are certain things that we have to make sure that are done and done properly. When you have the engagement of foreign governments, there is a lot of dotting of I's and crossing of T's that has to occur before we are even given permission to be able to return someone back to our jurisdiction or vice versa. Right out of the movies, I guess, we met him on the tarmac. A Congo line of police vehicles or security vehicles brought him, and they handed him over to us.
And what's Rabih Alkhalil's demeanor like when you're with him on the plane?
I can tell you he was polite and respectful to me. This is a process where I have a job to do. I make certain that the people that I deal with understand what my role and function is, and he equally was engaging with me. When I say engaging, some of it was just small talk, but it was not a cold stare-off, if you will.
He's a very intelligent individual, he's very smart, he's crafty, and we believe that if anyone was able to mount an escape, that he may be that guy.
Upon Rabih Alkhalil's return to Canada, he first faced court in Toronto for the murder of John Raposo.
It all apparently began over a grudge and money. 3 of the men found guilty, Nicola Nero, Martino Caputo, and Rabih Alkhalil, were allegedly involved in cocaine trafficking and hired a hitman to kill 35-year-old John Raposo.
The name of that hitman is under a publication ban, and it was not Rabih Alkhalil. But court saw surveillance video taken 3 weeks before John Raposo's murder. Alkhalil rented a Chevrolet Impala in Toronto. And after he returned the car, police seized items inside that were covered in the hitman's fingerprints.
The jury then delivered their verdict, all guilty of first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder.
Our hearts are broken. Justice cannot bring back the missing link in our family. As mentioned at the funeral mass, we ask everyone to remember John, not how he died, but how he lived.
A decade after the killing, Rabih Alkhalil then faced trial for Sundip Dure's murder at the Sheraton Wall Centre. Alkhalil was accused of hiring a hitman to gun down his rival.
Alkhalil was caught on surveillance video in the vicinity, though was not alleged to be one of the shooters.
You see Alkhalil and an associate arrive, and they're casing out the lobby, the lounge, etc. They actually go up to the guest services desk at one point, and then they go and they seat them. You can see them seat themselves in the lounge. And then around the corner is where Dure is. The shooter in disguise comes in, walks through the lobby, then walks directly through the lounge area. And then while he's out of sight, seconds later, you can tell by all the various videos that something has happened that's quite remarkable.
On the evening of July 21st, 2022, instead of being in a high-security penitentiary, Rabih Alkhalil was held at a facility in Port Coquitlam because he was on trial.
My phone starts blowing up, and I see Alkhalil's escaped. You know, it was still early evening. It had happened within an hour of getting these messages. And I'm like, oh my God, oh my God. We see on the surveillance video 2 people posing as contractors. They wore masks over their faces. And these guys used a plasma torch to cut through from part of the jail into the yard so he could go into the area that they were in. He got this vest on. You see them getting into a white van. They take off. The van was later abandoned.
Rabih Alkhalil escaped from the North Fraser Pretrial Center on July 21st, 2022, just before 7 p.m. RCMP say they were notified 40 minutes later.
Police should have been notified way earlier. I don't understand why there was that big gap in time. Like myself and no doubt other journalists were hearing from sources within less than an hour, and yet it took several hours before the public was notified. What if Alkhalil had gone on a crazy shootout? What if his plan wasn't as sophisticated as it ended up being, and they had to carjack a car to get away?
Alkhalil's connections range from across Canada to the United States, Europe and Asia. A Canada-wide arrest warrant and an Interpol red notice are being prepared.
A dangerous gangster facing murder charges. To me, it's a slap in the face to the justice system that an individual like that can escape.
We thought the whole trial might go off the rails. The trial was continuing, so I went to court the next morning. It was very, very tense. The judge, she worked with the Crown and Defense to draft a statement that would be given to the jury. And so we were able to publish her statement about him essentially absconding and that they were going to carry on with the trial. It was a month later when he was finally convicted. He was facing the rest of his life behind bars in his mid-30s.
And he really had nothing to lose.
If he'd been caught, what would it have done to his sentence? Nothing.
Coming up, a fugitive with nothing to lose but his freedom. Welcome back. Convicted killer Rabih Alkhalil escaped from jail while on trial for another murder. When the 36-year-old man was last seen, he had a faint scar on his nose and 2 birthmarks on his left cheek. He has black hair and dark brown eyes. He's about 5 feet 10 inches tall, or 178 centimeters, and weighs around 165 pounds, or 75 kilograms. He speaks English, French, and Arabic. Police are asking you to be on the lookout and to call in any tips, big or small. And remember, there is a $100,000 reward for information that leads to his capture. We return now to the hunt for Rabih Alkhalil with our reporter, Jules Knox.
Shortly after, this white van pulled away from the North Fraser Pretrial Center with Rabih Alkhalil inside. The murderer became the most wanted man in Canada.
I heard he was out of the country within an hour.
Given the geographic location, he certainly had options. If he has proper documentation, I expect all these details would have been well planned. All it takes is to get across that border, and once he's across, then the U.S. is a big country. He can go just about anywhere from there.
I don't think he is in Asia, because Asia, when you look at BC criminal organizations, is more or less controlled by the United Nations gang. So those would be his enemies. You know, his brother was living in Mexico. I've heard that he has good connections in Panama, but I think most likely he is in the Middle East, where his family has connections. He might be in Tehran.
There is also a rumor that Rabih Alkhalil is in Dubai.
What kind of impact has this had on John Raposo's family?
An incredible impact. It's still too tough for them to speak about this. He is missed, I would suspect, almost as much today as when it happened.
Canada's Be on the Lookout, or BOLO program, is making an appeal for help in finding Rabih Alkhalil, offering a $100,000 reward. In a field of fugitives, Rabih Alkhalil stands out.
Mr. Alkhalil is about 5'10" to 6 feet tall. He has been known to grow a beard in the past, as you can see here.
He, like other gang members that we've seen flee either custody or try to escape, they will try to alter their appearance, whether it's hair color. They have been able to get implants, whether that's dental or facial implants like cheek implants. So he may not look exactly like this. He needs to be off the streets because he's committed 2 murders in the last decade, and there's the chance for another one.
He will do anything in his power to survive and live his life outside of custody.
He's capable of having people killed at the drop of a hat. So I would suggest to you that he's extremely dangerous.
I think it's a real black eye on the Canadian justice system when someone who's already convicted of one murder and subsequently convicted of another murder is able to walk out of a government institution and escape. I don't think he'll ever be found.
Despite the influence of someone like Rabih Alkhalil, there's always someone who wants that guy dead.
Every dog has his day. They only need to make one mistake, and I think that'll happen. But I'm confident in the police that they're going to find him.
There are currently publication bans in this case, so we can't tell you everything about those involved. While Rabih Alkhalil wasn't the only suspect charged in these murders, he is the only one who evaded police and remains at large. If you have any tips on this fugitive's whereabouts, you're asked to call Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-TIPS. That's 1-800-222-8477. I'm Tracy Tong. Thanks so much for joining us tonight on Crime Beat Most Wanted. See you next time.
For more from Crime Beat, there are over 80 episodes of the Crime Beat podcast available now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or wherever you find your favorite podcasts.